Welcome back to Flat Iron Tuning. We're here in the shop. We've got some oil filters in front of us, and we finally got an oil filter cutter so we could open these things up and take a look at them, see what's inside, see what the differences might be between these. And this is, your standard Subaru filter, the 12A for the EJ engines, the A100 Tokyo Roki filter, and then the Clark Motorsports filter. We've got a lot of questions about what the difference is between the standard 12A and the Tokyo Roki filter through the years, and lately a lot of questions about what the difference is then about the Clark oil filter. So we want to take a look and see what we can figure out. Now, it's worth noting here, Subaru's having some availability issues with the standard 12A filter made by Honeywell. So this is the interim filter, the 0812, and there's a little bit of an interesting build difference in that it has metal support structure with a plastic center support for the filter. Overall, pretty darn good filter. I would not have any qualms running this. But that's not standard. That's not what the 12A typically has come with. That usually has had cardboard supports on the top and bottom of the filter media. So this is a little bit, possibly has some advantages over the standard cardboard filter that the 12A has been. But again, I've used that filter a bunch. Never had any issues with it. But the Tokyo Roki filter, this one is the one that's made in Japan, and that has always had the metal supports in the center, top and bottom of the filter, and just a known good filter media. And then the Clark filter, that also has metal top and bottom, metal internal support as well. All of these filters have an anti-drain back valve. I think basically these two, I believe, are silicone, and then this one feels like rubber, but I'm not 100% sure. But basically they all have the valving to prevent the oil from draining back or draining out of the filter as the car sits, which is a nice feature as well. The Tokyo Roki has kind of been the standard for a good quality OEM filter for Subarus. And in talking to Clark to try and get more information about what makes their filter tick or what they designed it around, what I found out was that they knew how good the Tokyo Roki filters were, and that was their benchmark. So when they were developing this filter, they actually had independent testing done to test their filter against the Tokyo Roki filter, and they only released it when they were happy with the fact that their filter had outperformed the Tokyo Roki in all of their benchmarks. They tested things like the pressure tolerance, like running the filter through many different cycles of pressure and such. But the biggest one that they were looking at is the flow of oil through the filter and the pressure differential. What happened to the oil as it went into the filter, and then how was that oil then delivered into the engine? And they gave me some numbers, and that graph is up on our website on the Clark filter. And once they were done with their development and happy with the design, the Clark oil filter, as volume increases, it delivers oil significantly better into the engine, or at a more consistent pressure than the Tokyo Roki filter does, which was, again, kind of their benchmark or their high water mark that they were comparing it against. Now, how do they do that? And this is where there's some interesting design differences. The first thing that's worth mentioning is when you've got these oil filters, the way that the oil flows in is it's through the outer ring. So the oil comes in through the outside, fills up the can, and then once basically it's in the can, it flows into the filter or through the filter into the center, and then once it's in the center, then it flows up into basically the post that the filter is threaded onto, and that's where the oil goes into the engine. So what Clark did, or the most obvious thing with Clark, is that they have a lot of large openings on that outer ring to let the oil into the filter. So with a minimal resistance. It's interesting that the current Subaru filter also has a lot of openings, though not as large as the Clark filter. Then they're using high quality filter media, and then in the center support, they have a lot of large holes to let that oil basically get into the center area once it's through the filter, and then go up into the engine. The Tokyo Roki filter also has a metal center support, and it's using some smaller holes. And interestingly, this temporary Subaru filter has got a plastic support, but it is very open, so it doesn't present much resistance, if any, for the oil to get basically into that center section, so that it can then go up into the engine. So knowing that basically that performance was their top priority, and that they were able to achieve that based on their testing results. It makes sense that when this came in, the first thing we did with these filters when we got them was to give them out to some people that have race cars, that have ability to monitor oil pressure. And what we were hearing back from a lot of these people was that they were seeing pretty consistently 2 to 4 psi higher oil pressure on average running the Roger Clark oil filter compared to the Tokyo Roki, which basically matches or bears out the testing that Roger Clark had done when they were developing this filter compared to the Tokyo Roki. And I think that's, there's a lot of other videos looking at oil filters and comparing them, based on, the relief valve spring pressure, the filter media type, does it have metal support and so forth, which are all, things that are important to look at and consider. But I think the ultimate performance of the filter, how well does it, allow oil that's under pressure to go into the engine, ultimately that's the thing that we're all really the most worried about versus the construction. So, that's why this filter comes with their dry sump boiling systems. Makes sense. That's why they recommend using it with their dry sump boiling systems. And kind of now that we've seen and found out what the differences are and what goes into making this filter, that's why we now like using this on all of our race cars and so forth. It's been a really good filter for us. The one thing that we haven't really done a lot of testing with or any testing of is how this does on longer oil change intervals. It's certainly made with high quality materials and has all the the metal supports and stuff so that it should hold up for a long time. It's just nothing that we've tested this filter for with that application. So if you're wanting to do that, if you're wanting to try and go with a longer change interval, we definitely encourage you to just kind of do some oil analysis gradually as you're extending your changes to make sure that everything is still holding up, oil and filter alike, just to make sure you're still getting good protection for your engine if you're doing it. Okay, so now that we've got these filters out, we've kind of taken the initial look at them, we're going to try and cut the filter media out and see if there's anything else that we can learn by disassembling these filters any further. All right, so cut through all of the filters, pulled out all the media. This was actually really interesting. In fact, I got to say, more interesting than I thought it would be. So first we've got basically the factory filter media on the top, Tokyo Roki filter media in the middle, Roger Clark filter media on the bottom here, or on the end. First and foremost, and the most obvious thing is the pleats in the factory filter are actually very, very small. Much larger pleats by and large in the Tokyo Roki and the Roger Clark filter. Stretching the filter media out, the factory filter has the shortest media by a long, long way, and the Tokyo Roki and the Roger Clark filter media are actually about the same length. This is one that's just stretched out a little bit more, but yeah, almost the same length, but the material is vastly different. Cutting it apart, that was where it became really apparent. The factory filter media is definitely a paper filter, and it came apart a lot. Just using a razor blade to cut through it, there's lots and lots of little pieces and stuff. It definitely came apart a bunch. Tokyo Roki and the Roger Clark filter media stayed together significantly better, and the Roger Clark filter media almost didn't have any kind of dust or particles that came off as I cut through it. And that was the last one I did, so the knife was probably the dullest at that point. And it also, basically getting the filter off, could really see the differences in the center sections between the Tokyo Roki and the Roger Clark, see the difference in the hole size where the oil can pass through into the center section. Just really interesting construction differences between all three of these filters. With the length of the filter media, the significance here is surface area. So you have the material itself and then the surface area. The more the surface area, the longer the media is, the easier it is for the oil to get through the media. It's, think about it like the number of paths that the oil can take. There's more paths, more pleats that the oil can pass through in the Roger Clark and the Tokyo Roki filter media versus the factory ones, just because there's just less space for the oil to go through. And just the quality of the media. I mean, the quality of these two filter media is definitely significantly better than this very simple paper media in the stock filter. So definitely see the value in going with a better constructed filter after kind of tearing it down to this extent for sure. So that answers all the questions that we have. If you've got any more questions or if there's any other details that you would like to find out or information you would like to know, Put them in the comments below. We'll see if we can find the answers for you and take it from there. But yeah, basically it's, you know, the difference of a quality filter is now more clear than it has ever been. So hopefully this is helpful for you. Hopefully it's been interesting to watch this video. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. And until next time, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.